8th. We've got the Chimp in full force going up against FYF.
And for the Chimps, it is going to be Beastyqt and MarineLorD kicking it off. DeMusliM taking his spot on the bench, so does Serral. And on the other side, it's going to be Flash and Shiki for FYF. On a map that we didn't really see that much in this tournament so far, Wetlands, it's a different version of Frisian Marshes that has been seen so frequently in Road to Red Bull Volo. This is now built into the tournament, or into the entire game, so it's a standard map. But it's something that's relatively unexplored given how new it is.
It's less campy, more unpredictable as well. Like, there's a lot of players that still feel that this map isn't like fully competitively ready because the generations can be all over the place. Of course, it was a map that was available in the Red Bull Wolo tournament, and I think MarineLorD might have been the only player who picked it at all. Everyone else would like ban it. They did not want to play it at all. So surprise, surprise. Our first wetland appearance is going to feature MarineLorD here. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one that was over the moon at this choice coming out. He will be like whipping out his signature French to open this. And interestingly enough, BC's going to go with the English. And I think this has been one of the most practiced combos from what I've been seeing on their streams.
You also have to consider that the Chimps are coming into this tournament as big favorites. At least to reach the semifinals, possibly even to win the whole thing. So, for them, especially against an underdog team like FYF, they may not want to show their best hidden strategies. So we might just see something very standard, something that is indeed just as simple as knights and longbows, not because they think that's the best strategy, it's because they think that it is a strategy that's good enough to win them the game with the execution advantage that they are thinking that they're going to have.
Yeah, it almost feels like most series are opening up with, I'd say, like, French is usually always coming out in the 2v2s. And then it's like you either pick English or Mongols in most cases. And the reason that that's kind of the clear deviation is, you know, Mongols gives you that outpost rush potential that's really annoying. But then the reaction of English just feels like the natural counter. I'm expecting teams to start switching away from Mongols because of this detail. Because what ends up happening is, like, you tried to tower rush them as the Mongols. Well, English are going to whip out the short bows. So you know, you can try to target the other player, but we've already seen some deviations where players will, as the English player, send some of their villagers into the teammate's base, so that if a tower rush does occur, they can just kill off the villager with short bows.
Yeah, and it looks like the aggressor this time around is going to be Beastyqt with the men-at-arms, doing some damage here to Shiki, and we have seen that in a previous set, that this could easily come down to the discrepancy between the two French players. How many knights can you field? So if you can throw off the early timings of the French player, you may already have the game in the bags. So it's going to be interesting how Shiki reacts to this, and it's also going to be interesting how much Flash can accomplish to slow down MarineLorD's Knight build-up as well with the horseman he's making.
Yeah, and good early harassment by Beasty. He's idling villages. He forces an outpost commitment as well, which is going to slow down the time of Shiki a little bit. I wondered if he was going to try to flip aggression then into the base of Flash, but by the looks of it, like his spawn doesn't have too much exposed outside the Uvu. That being said, that Uvu is so far away that maybe it would have been worthwhile for BC to run across the map there next. Horseman, damn, nice pinch.
Ooh. He even gets villager pick. That's good value out there. And the gold mine is idled for MarineLorD. So as much as Beasty was doing work over here, so does Flash. And Flash still has those horsemen roaming around to slow this down.
I am a little bit kind of surprised they haven't tried to redirect, but the logic here is like MarineLorD can't assist you in the early aggression, so you just turn this into a one aggressor versus one aggressor up against the defensive players. Whereas if BC tried to run across the map and apply pressure to Flash, by the time he arrives, he'd be outnumbered. So instead, he just kind of cut his losses at the remaining men-at-arms he has, make his way up, and they still have caused some delay here, right? School of Cavalry is being built up by Shiki right now, but Flash, with so many horsemen built, is nowhere near ready to tech up himself. As I say that, finally we're underway.
Ooh. Is he gonna get a second pick, though? You gotta be cautious.
No way.
Villager gets away. Still, you gotta say that Flash is doing decent damage over here, idling quite a few villagers. First Knight only now pops out from MarineLorD, and he's gonna have to deal with these swift-moving horsemen. This is good damage. MarineLorD won't be able to use that First Knight for aggression. Oh!
I mean,
that's
you're gonna feel good now. Yeah, the Khan goes down. And now he marches in on the wood line again. Knight is going to quickly react, though. Maybe you snipe a second villager here, but that should cost you a decent amount of horsemen. By the way, what happened there is Flash, the reason why he died, I think there's a little bit of panic setting there. He tried to move away, and it looked like he accidentally clicked on the sheep next to him, so he stood there attacking the sheep that was following him. So he got half healthed by the knight, and then, of course, panic dove the TC to try and get out.
Yeah. Flash has gotten some decent villager picks, but I think he went a little bloodthirsty there. Probably would have benefited more from just letting the villager live and then keeping those horsemen alive, because as long as you have those around, you can at least force MarineLorD to keep 1 or 2 horsemen back at home.
Beastyqt not really getting the full men-at-arms value he's looking for there. Just trying. I love the fact that with a little bit of HP left on that 1 men-at-arms, he just keeps trying to aggro the villagers, because the moment that he wants to see him clicked on him, he just wants to run into the tree line and have them idle. It's cute, but looks like it has come to an end as he's finally cleaned up. So Shiki has got access fully to the fishing now, and it's going to be incredibly valuable. Might allow him to escalate into multiple stables ahead of the regular builds we see for the French.
Yeah, and MarineLorD also went for barracks and spearmen. I'm not even sure if he's on fish. So this could give a decent advantage at the beginning when it comes to night numbers for Shiki. He's going to have better food income. He's focusing fully on night production. Yeah, MarineLorD, he was off from this for quite a while.
Yeah, that's what I expected though. Like you can't go out when the horsemen are there. You have to get the rack solution, and he didn't have enough wood to immediately go into racks plus spearmen. So that's why he was so delayed. But now that he has got a few spears coming out, it should be hard for Flash to dive in. When I say that, 1 spear is a... I don't know, you're being a bit of a cheapskate, not gonna lie. 2 is a lot better. There we go.
Yeah. It's gonna be annoying to deal with though, but it's also something for Flash to focus on. Looks like it's gonna be a double team on Shiki though. Here comes the spearman longbows as well from Beastyqt, and this is gonna be problematic for Shiki, because at the end of the day, he just wants to make knights, but when you are being pushed by longbows, or more importantly, spearmen, you need to deviate from knights, and that's not something that you ever want to do with the French here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because usually when you think of team games, it's kind of like you build 1 unit, maybe a little bit of a second type, but you're being a one-trick pony, right? At least for things like French. But what you may have noticed here is that Beastyqt is trying to create a 1v1 situation. So MarineLorD's going to defend against the Mongol player. Beastyqt's going to just shut down the French player on the other side. They don't want it to be a 2v2 composite, because at this point in the game, the Mongol-French one could be slightly stronger, especially with the early horseman investment.
And it's also the fact that Beastyqt and MarineLorD are probably the better individual players. In fact, it's known that they are the better individual players compared to their counterparts. So, at this point, having 2 separate 1v1s is something that benefits them. But once you have one player shifting sides like this, suddenly it could swing into the favor of FYF. Some beautiful pickups out there. 2 villagers and a longbow. Good value for Flash.
Really well played by Flash, because something you have to keep in mind is, like, right now, they can't directly fight Beastyqt. They both built cavalry. They don't have an answer to spears whatsoever. So this is a great pivot point. Flash is going to slow down the reinforcements. In the meantime, he's going to prep the counter. Archers are now being built by the Mongol player.
Yeah, he's going to go archers over here. He could have possibly considered Mengadai against the knights, but given how many longbows he's facing, that would be a little ambitious.
Yeah. It's like the only way in which you do Magadai against English longbow is if you're trading. So the whole logic is like why it's still valuable is that you can react to raids on your trade. But otherwise, it's just a bad play. Oh, villager. Oh, the body blocks. Just in time, keeps it alive. So villager will continue work. But remember, those outposts from start to finish take a minute these days. It's not a quick build anymore.
Yeah, it's not. Night numbers are looking slightly better right now for Shiki inside his base. And look at that. Once again, horsemen swoop around, and you really gotta credit Flash for being active with those horsemen, distracting Beastyqt to a point where he's gonna lose the villager to a knight.
Yeah, a really good little play there by Shiki. He loses the knight for it, but he prevents that outpost going up, which is not gonna block him off his resources indefinitely. He's gonna force the cancel now. So the annoyance of this for Beastyqt is it means he hasn't got safe points close by to retreat to. It means he's also gonna have to take fights away from that attack speed aura if he continues to circle the French base.
Yeah, still, I feel like the problem right now for Flash's team is that their escalation is slower. On the other side, you have a buildup of knights and a buildup of longbows, and we're getting close to reaching that critical mass. And that critical mass is very close to the base of Shiki right now, unlike the archers of Flash.
Oh, that's a good pick. So many knights going down there. Heavy hit for Shiki. And here's the other issue. Just look at the composition right now. Flash is trying to do everything. He's essentially playing 1v1 format, if you think about it, right? He's building archers, spearmen, and horsemen. Look at the other side. Beastyqt, only spears, only longbows. And then MarineLorD prioritizing knights. They are playing to their sub-advantages, while Flash is trying to jack of all trades.
Yeah, and it's not gonna work. Especially with the French, those knights are already very pricey. You can't afford to just mix in multiple units. And now he's going to lose the Knights as well. Has to defend this fish.
Yeah, that Knight went way too deep. Good micro by MarineLorD, just getting out the heavily injured ones. Does at least get the outpost up, but Lombos are going to trade out, sniping the villagers. It's just annoying right here. Like, honestly, if BC wants, he could easily exchange the Lombos to kill 2 or 3 more of the villagers. Instead, he's just going to pick and poke over time, just keep them alive, but always keep them a looming threat.
Yeah, I wonder where those archers are from Flash. They're really missing from this battle.
Are they?
I think they're crossing the map right now. It's too late.
But they've been so slow.
Yeah. The problem is that they could trade well against Beasty's forces, but now they're facing quite a lot of Knights from MarineLorD, which are essentially unanswered from Shiki. Shiki lost all his Knights because there was no teammate support.
Yeah, I mean, and you can argue Shiki maybe shouldn't have been taking that fight, but he felt pressured. He was going to lose the wood line. He's going to lose the potential to scale, or even maybe he ends up getting housed in that situation because he has no wood. Now, I mean, this dive in, this is a one-man dive because Shiki doesn't have an army. This is just going to be a wipe of the forces. Flash needs to get out quickly.
Nice little body block.
Yeah, that'll slow things down for a moment. Spears are going to get baited in, but it just means you're trading out your archers, the archers that you desperately need here, and it means Beasty will continue to keep the ranged lead.
Yeah, it's 19 archers against, or 19 longbows rather, against just 12 archers, plus reinforcements once again getting picked apart by these Knights. That's the mobility advantage now in the hands of MarineLorD, and you see Shiki is still stuck at 2 Knights. They desperately need more because they need to be able to keep track of those Knights running around, otherwise, at one point they'll just get torn apart from multiple raids.
Yeah, at this point, Shiki has to be shaking his head. There's just too many boxes to tick right now. You need to defend your teammate. You need to cover all 3 bases of unit types. You have to defend your own base. And most of your comp is going to be static as well. It just feels like way too much to ask. And these horsemen that were effective early on, no longer the case. You know, the small group raids like this, countered by 1 or 2 spearmen, even the villagers can just whip out a bow and whip your ass for it if you bring in only 1 or 2 of these horsemen. And if he ever brings in more of those horsemen, it means he's not defending with his full force. And you can see there is no wiggle room with this. There's so many Lombos outside the base of the French that you have to commit everything to the defense.
And now the Chimps are just playing pure numbers game. It is massive numbers advantage both in the Knights department and also in the Longbow department. Plus they have the attack aura set up over here as well. So this is very difficult for Shiki and Flash to push into, battering ram already doing some damage. And don't forget, if you lose map control, you will lose access to the fish as well. So overall, the eco benefit is also going to be massive here for Beasty and MarineLorD from this.
Yeah, I think the best way to summarize this game right now is apes together, strong. And that really is the way they've played this so far. MarineLorD is always guarding Beasty. You know, he picks off 1 or 2 of these Knights to go raiding elsewhere. That's about it. The main battalion's always here. Meanwhile, Flash and Shiki, I mean, they were like independent predators in the jungle. Yes. They weren't willing to just group together straight away, which is why the Chimps look so dominant now.
And now it's going to be a shift of focus to the north. They don't want to push into the TC. Instead, they just want to push that pawn to the north. Some nice picks over here for Flash, but feels too little too late. Eventually, you're going to trade those horsemen to a few villagers. Doesn't feel the right move right now.
Yeah, it's just going to continue the escalation afterwards. A few Knights will just counter this, and this is what I'm saying. That's pretty much the last of the raid. Flash, he has, what, 1 horseman somewhere after this? He's going to try to rebuild, but that feels like a bait at this stage. You know, horseman's not the answer. You need to tick the other 2 boxes in vast quantities if you ever want to counter this. Lombos. Going to poke at the archers. Knights are now going to clash. There's a lot of them as well. Spearmen follow up. We'll try to bait Shiki in. Be forced to peel away. It just feels like this is a battle you can't easily win. Rams are at least going to start to shrink the map around Shiki's base. You'll see they'll prevent the dive. Really not a dive that MarineLorD or Beasty want to contribute towards at this point. Their goal is just to restrict and slowly starve Shiki out of this game.
And that's exactly what they're doing. They're pinning those archers inside the base. And with the Knight screening, you can even keep those archers outside the range of the Longbows. The Longbows non-stop peppering down the archers, whereas the archers, they're just forced to fight the Knights, which is as terrible as it gets. Most of the archers now gone, Longbows still intact, and this feels like a battle that Flash and Shiki can't win.
And they know that there's a second TC behind this for MarineLorD, so you're like, oh, but we killed most of the Knights. Yes, but his economy is better outside of his base on fishing. He's going to escalate that Knight count quicker than Shiki ever can, especially considering that Shiki, he has to play pocket eco risk to the west side. If that ever gets spotted out, he'll be fully shut down, but it looks like he already is. Now, Rams, they're causing a housing crisis right now in the French economy. No army is here to defend. They haven't called GG yet, but they're pretty much at that point.
Yeah, at this point, Shiki is a non-factor. His buildings are being shut down, his house, his town center is being ramped down. And as much as Flash is trying to do to help, it's no longer sufficient because the longbows with the attack buff, they will just take everything down. You see barely any casualties on the sides of the chimps, whereas on the other side, all reinforcements are getting picked apart, and this counterattack has been repelled. Nothing is left for Shiki to defend with. He might be able to get one of those battering rams as a silver lining, but that's all.
Honestly, it just feels like they walked into the chimps territory, right? In a jungle, like, well, we've got them. They're just stupid monkeys. All of a sudden, 10 more monkeys come running out of the tree, and 20 more. It just never stops. And that really is representative of the army you're looking at here. Like Beasty, it's just a never-ending tide of yellow. And now, to support it, MarineLorD is adding in his own static comp. Spearmen and archers also being built by the French player. I mean, this is becoming untenable. I wouldn't be surprised if they just call GG when they realize they've been spotted here, because that's pretty much all of Shiki's economy. And
yeah,
they have nowhere safe to go.
He can run, but he can't hide. He can still run for a corner, fight a different gold mine, but at one point, they would just shift focus towards Flash. And it's not like Flash has an army that can hold off this assault anyways, so they can just keep ignoring Shiki, even if Shiki flees to the corner, but they will just wipe out the remaining economy. I think at this point, no matter what, you shift focus towards Flash because Shiki is dead.
Yeah, and honestly, what does Flash have going for him? Like, he fully invested in Feudal. Militarily, he's fully outnumbered. Like, honestly, at this stage, BC's army is about the same size as Flash's alone. That's when we don't even add in the MarineLorD factor. The MarineLorD factor that is now being added in the equation as it's found its way into the Mongol economy. I mean, honestly, just looking back at the way this game played out, I think it comes down to that pivotal moment where Shiki gets forced to fight in his own base, 2-on-1. That was the moment where this really started to snowball out of control.
Yeah, the first wave of reinforcements from Flash was just late to the party. Those were needed right there to make sure Shiki doesn't lose his knights, because from that point on, it was a knight number disadvantage. They will clean up this group of longbows, but once again, this is just...
It feels trivial, right? Like, it's like, oh, yeah, you got him. But then you look up the military pop cap, you're like, yeah, but that's like, that has to happen 3 more times.
Yeah, it feels like it's just delaying the inevitable.
Absolutely. And these knights will just continue to raid in. They'll cycle charge because you don't have an army at home to defend. I mean, you were barely any spearmen here. Knight count is still inferior for Shiki. Remember that this is 2 TC for MarineLorD, so continue to scale ahead. Looks like enough spears are here to push him back for the time being. But remember that this is 2-on-1 right now. Beasty has yet to re-enter the battlefield, but he will soon after he completes that deck up.
Yeah, and he's gonna be on 2,000 centers as well. It's double the eco already for the chimps. It's not what you do right now, it's what you're gonna do in 2 minutes time for Flash and Shiki. They won't be able to stop Castle Age English army. In fact, at this point, Shiki is gonna get his entire base leveled.
He is. I think, honestly, in 2 minutes' time, what they might be doing is just staring at the endgame stat screen, because this is pretty much done. They're going to fall all in. This either works or they get broken. And oh man, this has to break your heart. Actually, MarineLorD, like, they're diving in towards a secondary TC. He built a third. So while he's going to be up at 3 TCs, Shiki's about to be down at none.
Oh, that never looks good.
I mean, he's at least going to get the repair off in time before the fires consume him. But that just means that the chimps going to have to consume him instead. I mean, I didn't know that chimps ate humans, but it's starting to look that way.
Yeah, they're eating everything right now. Fish, hunt, anything that they can find on the map. And honestly, even consuming their opponents at this pace.
These would be the humans they're looking to munch down upon. I mean, these Radiants not really finding the impact they need. 1 ram. Honestly, that's like, we really need to put a budget together to defend our country. It's like, okay, well, we can afford a gun and maybe like 1 clip of ammo. It's not really the full firepower you need. I mean, MarineLorD alone is going to hold this back, and it feels like, once again, where's Shiki's army? He at least has an excuse this time. His army is next to non-existent.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to pick off a couple of villagers, but don't forget, eco lead is gigantic, so villagers being killed here is essentially a non-factor, whereas losing that army for Flash and Shiki is the end of the game, essentially. Ram goes down, no more standing army left, and I think they're left without options. Now it's Castle Age for Beasty, gigantic eco lead, and indeed, they do tap out. Chimps, convincing game #1 victory over here on Wetlands.
Yeah, honestly, this was pretty brutal to watch for FYF. You know, the FYF usually have a little bit more coordination. I think what I'm seeing out of Flash, it almost feels like that kind of solo carry thought process, right? It's almost like in a way he's kind of playing these 1v1s. We saw him build all 3 unit types. We saw him not be there in time for Shiki. I mean, you could argue Shiki took the fight too early. I'd say like the best way to look at that is that BC and MarineLorD forced him to take the fight so quickly. Like they surrounded half of his base. They were onto his military production lines. Shiki gets baited into a terrible fight. And from that point on, this game was only going one way. Just great read by the chimps. They don't over-aggress. They read the aggression perfectly. And for anyone wondering, why wasn't this a quicker GG? This game is clearly over. Let's keep in mind we have God Vision. FYF do not. We knew that there was multi-TCs and there was free TCs from MarineLorD and whatnot. They probably thought if they could get rid of that second TC on the French player, maybe they could come back. But